Now, I know it sounds like or seems like the news cycle has been on hold for the past 2 weeks after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, because in the meantime, Europe's energy crisis has just been getting worse. Crippling power bills are forcing manufacturers to close their doors for a couple of days each week, standing down staff. In parts of Germany, hot showers are banned at gyms and swimming pools. Government officials have also banned portable air conditioners and heaters. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower's lights are being switched off early to save power. And in Britain, millions of businesses will have their power bills capped for 6 months to help them stay afloat. Boris Johnson, in one of his final speeches as PM, hit the nail on the head, identifying nuclear as the solution while calling out weak politicians for dropping the ball.
It's called myopia. It's called short-termism. It's a chronic case of politicians not being able to see beyond the political cycle.
He's right, but he's got to accept some of the blame himself, of course. Let me bring in the former leader of the UK's Brexit party, Nigel Farage. He's heading to Australia next week. He joins us now live from London. Good to talk to you, Nigel. Tell us firstly about this energy crisis, just how bad it is in the UK and the rest of Europe, and why Australia should be learning from it.
Well, forgive my laughter, but for Boris Johnson to talk about myopia and bad policy when he has been the high priest of net zero targets.
Exactly.
I mean, God help us, really.
Well, net zero is fine if you do it with nuclear power, right? Because it's there. But he's gone with all the wind turbines and the rest of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, what nuclear power gives you is baseload, but for us to build a major new nuclear facility in Suffolk on the east coast of England, which is what Boris was doing on that day, it'll be at least 12 years before that's in production, by which time we may well economically have gone back to the Industrial Revolution, because we won't have any hot water, we won't have any computers. I mean, you couldn't make it up. Well, but by the way, welcome to the club. Australia, welcome to the club of self-harm. Good old Scott Morrison, what a proper Conservative politician he is. He has signed you up to the net zero agenda. And there was everybody at Glasgow at COP26 saying, well done, Australia. Isn't that marvellous? So welcome to fuel poverty. Welcome to deindustrialisation. Welcome to not being energy independent. Because to meet your targets, you have got to deindustrialise. And by the way, while you're doing that, there's one big country who are building 80 new coal-fired power stations every single year, who will be laughing their socks off because
China, of course, yeah,
are the massive. Of course. I mean.
Sorry, Nigel. This is to put this into historical perspective, because you were talking about Britain sending itself back to the pre-industrial age and China going ahead with coal-fired power stations as well as nuclear. That's what people are missing here, right? The very fact that our whole civilization and our prosperity is founded on cheap energy. Throw that away, you throw away everything we've built over the past 2 centuries. And secondly, while we do this, we weaken ourselves at this dangerous strategic time while we allow China to strengthen itself.
Well, absolutely. But do remember there are some beneficiaries of this. Very, very big, rich multinational companies who are involved in the wind energy industry, for example, who have received tens of billions of pounds in my country of subsidy over the years, all by the way paid for by putting extra amounts of money on the bills of poor people. And of course, the Chinese also manufacture most of the wind turbine blades. So there are some winners in this, just that everybody else loses. And in Europe's case, to have made themselves as dependent on Russia as they are, Donald Trump warned them in 2018 they were making a terrible mistake. They laughed at him. Well, I tell you what, they're not laughing now. So this whole thing is crackers. If renewable energy can be produced in the free market without subsidy and can make a useful contribution, well, that is fine. But the problem is the wind doesn't blow. So the position in my country is this. Everything now hinges on whether we get a cold winter or whether we don't. If we get, and I promise you this is true, if we get a big high pressure anticyclone sitting over the UK for 2 weeks in February, do you know what's going to happen? The lights will go out. And
We will have similar problems here.
Yeah, a modern age of digitisation, computerisation, cell phones and all the rest of it, we've actually, as a civilization, never been more reliant on electricity today than at any point in time. And yet that is where we are. We're praying it won't be a cold winter. So I'm going to come to Australia. I'll be there this time next week. And I'm going to say to you, have a look at my country. We've deindustrialised. Both our aluminium smelters gone. Most of our refining gone. It's funny, isn't it? We now buy our diesel that's refined in Russia. Much of our heavy industry gone, and we have gas reserves that we haven't tapped. We have coal reserves that we don't use. We have oil facilities that haven't yet been fully invested in. So if you go for net zero, you export manufacturing jobs and you import energy and become reliant on countries like Russia, Qatar, or Saudi Arabia. It is completely and utterly bonkers from an economic angle, from a strategic angle. And I think what is happening in my country, despite the wall of propaganda, that if you buy a diesel car, we're all going to be dead in 2 years. Despite all of that, and despite bowing down to the goddess Greta, I think actually the truth is the public are beginning to rumble this.
Yeah, and we are following you down that blind gully in this country as well, as you well know. And speaking of bowing down to the goddess of Greta Thunberg, what about your new king? Let's have a look at some of what Prince Charles, as he was then, had to say in the lead up to that Glasgow COP meeting last year.
It will be a disaster. I mean, it'll be catastrophic. It is already beginning to be catastrophic because nothing in nature can survive the stress that is created by these extremes of weather.
Well, he's now King Charles III. He's still talking, has been up until his swearing in, of course, talking a lot about climate, the alarmist approach, the net zero approach. Our Prime Minister has encouraged him now to keep going down that political path as king. Yeah. Surely he needs to shut up.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Charles called CO2 a pollutant, I thought, well, speak to any market gardener, speak to anyone that's producing tomatoes. They actually pump CO2 into the greenhouses because without CO2, plants can't grow. But we've forgotten that. Look, in the past, Charles and I have had our head-to-head confrontations, one very public one in the European Parliament. However, he has promised in his King's speech, which he delivered to the nation, a very moving, powerful speech, he's promised he will leave those issues behind. He will be a politically neutral, constitutional monarch. And I want to believe him. What Albanese is doing in encouraging him to continue campaigning politically would be the end of the constitutional monarchy. That would be the end of it. It will be gone forever. It'll be gone forever. And you know what we've learned? What we've actually learned over the course of the last 2 weeks is that a politically neutral constitutional monarchy brings together the country, brings together left and right in the most extraordinary, unifying way, and actually supports our democracy. The alternative would be a presidential system run by Puritans, headed up by some clapped-out politician who wouldn't have support, who wouldn't have support from the other half of the country. I mean,
we'll have that debate. We are out of time. I look forward to seeing you in Australia next week.